The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Chapter 1. No live organism can continue for long to exist sanely under conditions of absolute reality. Even larks and katydids are supposed by some to dream. Hill House, not sane, stood by itself against its hills, holding darkness within. It had stood so for 80 years and might stand for 80 more. Within, walls continued upright, bricks met neatly, floors were firm, and doors were sensibly shut. Silence lay steadily against the wood and stone of Hill House, and whatever walked there, walked alone. Hi, this is Nisha, and thank you for tuning in to my literature podcast. Today we will be discussing The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. We will be going through Chapter 1, Section 1 to Section 5. I hope you enjoy, but first, here's a quick recap. So, Dr. John Montague is a doctor of philosophy and anthropology. Through these fields, he hopes to come closer to his true intentions of analyzing supernatural manifestations. And to achieve this goal, he puts a lot of time and money to rent Hill House, which is known for being honestly haunted, and to discover the causes and effects of psychic disturbances. And to observe and engage his findings, he is searching for assistants to help him. And he carefully chooses assistants that have specifically been involved in abnormal events. So after mailing out the letters and receiving very few responses, among these few were Eleanor Vance, who's a miserable and antisocial young woman who has spent a majority of her life despising and taking care of her mother. Then there's Theodora, who is quite the opposite of Eleanor, and peppy and cheerful, and Luke Sanderson, who is the heir to Hill House and acts as a host to them all. And at the moment, they are all on their way to Hill House, searching for a new beginning. I will be looking into this section through the lens of escape. This idea has been made very relevant in the story so far and has come up a lot, especially through the characters. As a common thought for many of the characters who have been introduced so far, this includes main and side characters. But for the main characters who are traveling to Hill House, the main reason for this is to use it as their own escape and almost as an excuse for a new beginning. So, when reviewing the idea of escape, one of the first questions that comes to my mind are, what are these characters escaping from, and what do they hope to achieve by escaping? So, what are their intentions? What are they leaning towards? What are they trying to escape from, and how are they going to do this? But in this instance, each character is different, although they all start expressing ideas of unfulfillment or dissatisfaction with their previous lives, and this leads to the idea of wanting to escape. So it first starts with Dr. Montague, who is first introduced as being very careful and conscientious, and he has an interest in investigating the abnormal or the supernatural. And he's not an average doctor. He's not like the other doctors that you would think or that would come to mind. And he only uses his title as a doctor in his degree to allow him accessibility to resources and give him respectability that will aid him in the future in his discoveries of psychic disturbances. In order to fulfill this, he is not only going through a physical retreat or escape to Hill House for his studies, but he is escaping the norm or the status quo or what an average doctor might observe. And he wants to go beyond that and experience and observe shocking but yet real things. His main goal is to prove the unknown truth. So this hope to escape everyday sciences that make him so determined and put everything he has into Hill House is what shapes him into being this orderly and systematic character, in which he needs to be this way in order to prove and follow through with his discoveries that are so new to everybody else. So, piggybacking off this idea that Hill House is this place or haven to escape to and experience new things, one of the characters introduced is Eleanor Vance. Her escape, although it's more literal than Dr. Montague, is still very essential to the storyline. So she is described as very lonely, having no friends, being sort of the self-conscious and socially awkward person. And this is owed largely to the fact that for 11 years, she was spending her life caring for and being kind of a slave for her spiteful and dependent mother. On page 6, it even says, she could not remember ever being truly happy in her adult life. Her years with her mother had been built up devotedly around small guilts and small reproaches, constant weariness, and unending despair." End quote. So Eleanor was invited by Dr. Montague for the fact that when she was about 12 years old, she went through a very odd and abnormal and unexplained series of events in which she, without a warning, her and her family were showered with stones that had rapidly dropped on her roof for 3 days. So although her mother had passed away, she had moved in with her sister. So though she had escaped her labor for her mother, as her mother had died, she had yet to escape her extreme dislike and hatred for her sister, as well as her distaste for her sister's family. So this letter from Dr. Montague was her escape. Hill House was her way out of the life that she never wanted and that she was sort of forced into. So page 7 said, quote, "During the whole underside of her life, ever since her first memory, Eleanor had been waiting for something like Hill House." End quote. This was her opportunity to finally live a life where she didn't owe anything to anyone. On Eleanor's journey to Hill House, and based on her past experiences, she is seen as being a new person or trying to evolve. So she is seen making many stops and detours and observing and imagining a new life for herself outside of the city. And this trip to the quaint countryside was her first step in her journey to independence and freedom. So she took it in and she tried to imagine herself in a different life. And this is her new beginning and considered her personal escape. So during Eleanor's road trip or her journey to Hill House, she comes across a couple of minor characters, but they are still very important to this theme of escape, as they also present ideas of being dissatisfied with their life and wanting something new. So, for example, one of the minor events that Eleanor went through during her journey to Hill House was she stopped for lunch at this restaurant with one other family there, and they seemed very posh and seemed to conform nicely to social standards. And it kind of showed that no matter how happy or rich you are, one of the common themes of the story is that none of the characters ever seemed satisfied with their life, or nothing was ever enough. So in this family, there was a little girl, and she wanted a specific type of cup, and her family insisted on her just dealing with what she had, but she continued to fuss and continued to be dissatisfied with what she was given. However, Eleanor did support this, as, quote, page 20, she said, "Don't do it," Eleanor told the little girl. "Insist on your cup of stars. Once they have trapped you into being like everyone else, you will never see your cup of stars again. Don't do it." End quote. This has to do, though, with Eleanor's past and the fact that she was trapped in everybody else's wants and needs. So she wanted better for this girl. And she wanted this to be the first step for this girl to realize that she had some individuality and could escape this conformity and the social norms and what everybody else wanted for her, and to go down her own path and start a new beginning, like Eleanor was doing at the time. So soon after the events at the restaurant, Eleanor once again passed these people at a diner and started asking them questions about their life in the countryside and how perfect it was and if she should move there. And one of the men replied, quote, "People leave this town," he said. "They don't come here," end quote. And it just adds on, once again, to the fact that nobody was happy, whether they were in the city or whether they were on the countryside. Everybody was trying to go somewhere else. And this is, once again, a very important lesson and contribution to the characterization of Eleanor, as she's realizing now that nobody is ever happy. So she is now given this chance to do something else with her life, and she should just take it while she can. In addition, I just wanted to mention the correlation to what's happening right now, and how Eleanor's story is so relevant to us being in quarantine and social distancing and not being able to go outside. So not only are we physically trapped in our house and wanting to escape and having this longing to be somewhere else, but mentally, as mentioned before with other characters in this story, we are in one way or another most likely dissatisfied with the state that we are in and trying to escape this idea and the negative and pessimistic thoughts that we are not currently living life as desired, as Eleanor had for many years, and that we are missing out on new opportunities and social interactions, which essentially was Eleanor's life, as she was also stuck inside this home, wanting to get out, wanting to make friends and be loved by others. And since she missed out on all of this, it ended up being a defect in her character, as she was no longer able to act and be normal with others. So it's kind of this thing to think about once we get out of quarantine. Will we be somewhat like Eleanor? Will it be hard for us to kind of go back to normal life and how things really are? And will social interactions still be the same? And will going places still be the same? Will we appreciate it more, just as Eleanor had on this journey? So finally, thank you for joining me in this podcast, and I'll be diving deeper into The Haunting of Hill House next week.